Good morning, afternoon, evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everybody's doing well. 3 days before Thanksgiving, and I know you're going to have a nice time with your family, and hope all is well with you and yours. I'm George Moss, the host of the program here at allpointstv.com, and we're coming to you again at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you can pick us up anytime at your leisure. And the program here is called What's Going On? And we've been hosting this program now going on about 7 years. We are always glad here at the studio to have you with us because we know you could be spending your time doing other things. And when you sit here with us and let us come into your homes, we definitely appreciate it. We want you to watch all the programs here at allpointstv.com. I can tell you this, behind the scenes, people come in the studio and they prepare their programs, and when they come before the camera, you see us sitting in these chairs and you think that we are just kind of running in and doing the program, but there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. And when we come in, there's a lot of things that we're doing to get ready for the shows. And when we get before the cameras, it's ready to roll. And so stay tuned because there's another program coming on when this program is over this afternoon. There's a program called Satura's Black History Corner that comes on at 3:30. And they hang around, normally around 30 minutes. So about from 3:30 to 4 o'clock, they're here. And you can pick them up at your leisure also. Again, hope you have a nice Thanksgiving. I know the family is gathering from all over the country, and people are getting ready for the big turkey day. And we are having some big plans at my house. I can count on 3 meals a year. And when I finish the program, we're going to do the preliminary shopping. We do 2 different shopping sprees. One is the preliminary shopping. Go get all the accoutrements that go with the turkey. We don't get the turkey too early. We wait until around Tuesday, mainly because we're having the room in our refrigerator once it thaws out. So we get all the things like the giblets and the celery and the smaller things, have that already in the house, and then we go back and get the turkey around Tuesday and let it thaw out Tuesday night, and then Wednesday, and by Thursday we're ready to put the big turkey in the oven. And I'll tell you something, I learned how to cut the turkey. I watched this video. You know, the internet is so good because you can just turn it on, and anything you want to find out, you can tune it in. I learned how to cut the turkey, and I've been cutting the turkey all these years, trying to get slice here and take another slice, and none of it ever comes out well. Well, I found out how to do it, and the way you cut the turkey is go over there on the side where that bone is, and cut it the whole side off. And then turn it and then slice it that way. Now, I think that's going to work. I haven't tried it yet. I saw it on TV. I said, "Wow, that's so easy." I'll report to you next week if it works. But I said I've been trying to slice it down the center, and then it all tears up, and you picking up little pieces and putting it on people's plate. You know, you're serving, and they said, "George, you cut the turkey." And I'm always kind of hesitant doing that because I haven't had a lot of success with it. But I will say this, we'll have the best dressing in the whole county, if not the country. That's one thing we have good every year, and that's turkey and dressing and potato salad. That's my favorite. And so we have a lot to be thankful for. And those of you that don't have anything to be thankful for in terms on the front end, in terms of the positive side, think of the negative Thanksgiving. You can be thankful negatively. For example, let me see. You could be thankful that from now until Thursday, it'll be 3 more days closer to Obama stepping down from the presidency.
Still not.
It's a negative Thanksgiving.
What's negative about it? We can't accelerate time until that day. Actually, I've even heard Democrats say, "I wish his term was up." I even heard Democrats say this.
It's hard to understand anyone that's saying they want. We've had. I was counting the number of months up. we've had 81 months of this nonsense. It's hard for me to even think about anybody wanting, more months of it. I can tell you right now that we have, I counted what was it, 13 more months of this. We got December and most of January, so that's 2 months, and then we got the next year. So about 14 more months we got of this nonsense. So if you're having some problem, I have a lot to be thankful for myself. I'm just, I'm thankful for, I'm thankful for what I used to hear in the church when I was a kid. People would get up in the church and say, I'm thankful for getting up in my right mind. And I can never understand, we don't, as children, you don't think about, people getting sick and being your right mind is an issue. So you don't understand that. People get up in the church and they would say, I want to thank you for getting up in my right mind. And I'm saying, what other kind of mind do you have? Well, I'm at that age right now that I'm just thankful for I'm thankful for the air. You just kind of count your blessings one by one. And so I have a lot to be thankful for. And one of the things, if I didn't have anything to be thankful for, I still would find something to say thanks, because it could be worse. As bad as it is, it could be worse. And I was talking to a person on the internet. I'm on Facebook a lot, not as much as people think that I am. I'm on there to post every day, and then I read some other people's posts, and then I'm kind of off there for the rest of the day and do my reading. But I was on a post. One of my readers on my post was telling me that she gets very discouraged in terms of things that are going on, and she feels like giving up, because there's just so much going on right now. And our leaders are out of control. The government is not doing anything. We don't have any representation in Washington. Let's be honest about that. That's not anything to write home about. And there are a lot of people that are just getting disenchanted. And so my comment was that, and she said that how long, I think the question she asked was, how long can I go on? I think that's how she phrased it. It could be a little bit differently phrased. I know it had the onus of how much more of this can we take. So, and when is it over? And I said back to her that I don't know how others feel about it, but it ain't over. It ain't over. I feel like Yogi Berra. It ain't over until it's over, and still it ain't over. Look, I am never. I don't care what they do up there. I am never going to surrender. I'm going to write about them. I'm going to talk about them. I'm going to teach about them. I'm going to fight.
Well, besides you being pretty public about your denouncing of the regime, I mean, let's face it, you're putting yourself out there in the public, social media. And so, I mean, let's face it, you couldn't retract now. I mean,
no, I couldn't. There's too much out there.
We're all.
I couldn't do this right now and ask for forgiveness, because they wouldn't believe me.
It's like, what's weird though? Okay, back in the '60s, I can remember the very tail end of it.
Yeah.
The radicals were saying, how oppressive the government was then. Our government didn't have, I'm not saying the Republicans are better people, they just didn't have the means to be able to monitor people like they do currently.
Yeah.
So, if it were available to them, I'll preface it that way, because I really have a disdain for both parties at this point. But my God, there's just so much of a contempt for the First Amendment on the left. Oh. Dude, I saw that meme I sent you. Some people are saying to criticize the president is actually can now constitute treason. Mm-hmm. That's, they used to criticize Nixon and all the other Republicans vehemently. They used to trash him every TV show in the 70s. Now you can't do that. You basically, you gotta basically do whatever, go along with whatever he wants you to do.
Yeah.
Where the hell did that come from? This is a presidency, not a monarchy. I just don't understand these people, the transition, and that's from the left. The left has always been, I always knew that they were going to be the biggest hypocrites once they gained the upper hand. I knew they wouldn't be so compassionate, they wouldn't be so conciliatory, they wouldn't be so broad in their tolerance. I always knew that, and I hate being right, and I'm right about 99% of the time.
Yeah. Well, John, you and I talk a lot in the studio. And we pretty much know we're on the same page 99% of the time. And neither one of us is surprised at what we're seeing right now in terms of the left coming out of the woodwork with its hypocrisy. But as you just mentioned, it's both parties. We have a problem with both of them, and we're going back and forth trying to find an answer, and neither of the two parties have any answers. And we keep going back and forth because we know that the ones we have in there right now, that's not the answer. So we turn to the other party and we get disappointed in them not having any answers. So you have to kind of get to the point where you look at the small victories. Sometimes you can talk to someone and you're having a conversation and there's something that goes on that's eclectic in that conversation that you didn't expect. And somebody is converted. I'm not saying that we have all the answers, but sometimes a person is thinking in a channel that is wrong. And if you can turn that person into a direction of being more discerning, I'm not saying be right in terms of I'm right and they're wrong. I mean, and I'm big and they're small. I mean, this is not Matilda. I'm not Danny DeVito in that role he played, where I'm big and you're small. I'm talking about just people need to be more discerning. You can draw your own conclusions, but have some data that you can back up what it is you're talking about. And one of the things you try to do, and this is the victory always, when you're talking to someone that's out here emoting and have 1,000 opinions and have no documentation for any of them, if you can kind of get the person to begin to think about, okay, fine, you have all these opinions here. Now, which of those ideas that you have, do you have something you can base it upon in terms of have you read this or have you read that? And
well, nothing is that's you're still reading so much, but just got to sit there and say, if we did this, how would we carry this out? How we could sustain it? Mm-hmm. That's never brought up. That's never brought up. We have there's no talk about like, well, we'll do this, but we'll have to cut this first. No, they want to do this in addition to all the things that are going on.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just absurd.
I'm amazed at how there's so little analytical skills that people have, and how little analyzing we're doing of that which we're told. Let me give you an example. I wrote about this today on my Facebook wall. This is about these politicians, and so that's why I know that based on what I've been writing on Facebook, asking for forgiveness at this point is a waste of time, because I've been going after these politicians because I don't have any confidence in any of them, and I want them to know I don't have any confidence in them, and I don't believe anything they say because they have not earned our trust. In fact, I'm gonna make this point right here, and then I'll tell you what I want to say about this thing that Bush did. I don't even know, quite frankly, why we listen to politicians. They don't listen to us, and the reason why I don't know why we listen to them, I mean, I do know in the sense that they got this propaganda going. And they got us believing that they are the answer. But I have too much history in my background that I've read. Went back over a lot of it that I studied in college. Went back over it because there were some answers I was looking for that I didn't have initially, and I realized now I was asking the wrong questions when I was reading, and I had to go back over with the right questions. And the right question is really only one right question when you're reading history, and that is, why are these events playing out the way they're playing out? In other words, what's causing that to occur? I learned what occurred. I did not go in it to ask a question, why is that happening? And why is it happening at that time to those individuals through whom it was taking place, through whom it was taking place? And when I went back with that question, I began to see something. I began to look at the impulses of history, and then looking at the tendencies, and then looking at the people and the politics and the ideology that they were carrying around with them that caused those events to transpire the way they transpired. Because if there had been another person in there, it would have happened differently. So I want to know why did it happen differently in that case, and why didn't something else play out? And then you start looking at the individuals in order to see why it played out the way it played out, given who was in control of that at that point. So I did some of that. But let me tell you why I don't have any confidence. I don't listen to politicians, quite frankly. Anything they say, I take it with an ocean. It's not a grain. It's an ocean of salt, because I don't think that politics attracts people that have character. In fact, I think politics really is a magnet for sociopaths. And there's no reason to believe that it will be better tomorrow than it is right now. I've read too many things that show me that that would not be true. I mean, there's nothing to hang your hat on. So I don't believe politicians. I want them to know I don't believe them. I don't care if they know it. I said it in public, and I really don't care what they think about it. And I do have some friends I have some people that I know that are politicians, and I don't care whether they like it or not. And I said in my post today, I made a comment about Obama. And I said that before you get started, I want you to know this, I don't care what you think about it. Obama has been a disaster for this country. Will go down in history as one of the worst presidents we've ever had. I know how people think about that. I know especially how black people think about it. And they don't want to hear anything about this man being a travesty for this country, but he is. And I could care less whether they like it or not. That is the absolute truth. And they can't disprove it from being true. And I could care less about their opinions, which don't sway me unless you can show me the documentation, which you can't show me. Because this man has been a disaster. And it's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. Because this man intends to do even more before he gets out of office. And I just read the other day that they're saying Michelle Obama, who was not even elected to office, she's the first lady because the president was elected. And she follows in the footsteps of the other 43, really it was 42. I don't think that Grover Cleveland was married. I think he was the only president who wasn't married. So she would be the 42nd First Lady because Grover Cleveland was elected in two different terms, 84, and then Benjamin Harrison came in from 88 to 92, and then Grover Cleveland came back in 92 and ran again and was in the non-consecutive terms, the 22nd president and the 24th president. So, but she was quoted in one of the posts as saying that before she leaves office, now what office does she have? That she plans to have the guns in this country confiscated. Well, I don't know what guns she's talking about, but she's not talking about the guns I have. I think you better read that Second Amendment again.
Yeah, but they're well. The thing is, that's the reason why they want to bring what they want to do is bring all these foreigners in, illegals. Mm-hmm. They don't value the Second Amendment. They don't value the Constitution.
They don't.
And so within 5-10 years, they're going to be voting. So even if they don't do it now, there's going to be a definite full-frontal attack on all the civil liberties.
Yeah.
Because the First Amendment right now is on the ropes in the academic mm-hmm. world. Mm-hmm. And so that's why they want people to get in here. Basically, they want to create their own following. Yeah. And they bring it on. We pay for them, so now they can get their vote, so they can keep on the money, conduiting the money into their own checkbooks. Mm-hmm. That's all these people are about, is power and money, because they're fused together at the hip. So that's the reason why they want these. They want all these illegals in. Because they don't value the same values. They just want the free stuff. That's what they're coming here for.
John, you know what? It took me a while to understand that. I came to the same conclusion you did. I did not understand what the immigration was about in terms of them bringing immigrants in that they knew. And I'm talking about not only the United States. I'm talking about James Cameron in England. I'm talking about Francois Hollande in France. Angela Merkel in Germany, and look now in what is happening in Belgium. And I didn't understand that until very recently, in fact, about what this immigration was all about, because it is not about compassion. They're not compassionate. What they're doing is they're importing the totalitarian vision and view into countries that have a more democratic orientation because the traditions are different. And the way they're getting around these traditions is that they are importing those of like mind into those countries, even though they pose a danger to their citizens. It took me a while to understand that.
You see, the reason that's the most appalling thing. Even if it was racist or unfair, not letting the Syrians, this group in, even if it was racist, unfair. But the bulk of the population saying, this is, okay, for one thing, they have no real legal leg to stand on which says, we have a right to control immigration. Well, you also have to listen to the input of the people already there. Mm-hmm. Okay? I mean, you don't keep on trying to move other people in other people's houses, do you, when they're already occupied, right?
Right.
So it's the same thing. Okay, now, Obama said the most arrogant thing, he's the only people he feels like he should apologize for, maybe two, if he's going to have to apologize, is the Native Americans. Okay, he keeps on going back to an era that he was never part of, when the natives were the only people here. Okay, which was it? I mean, I'm not trying to debate the fact that was wrong, what happened to the Native Americans. It was wrong to have their lands taken from them, butchered for those lands. I have no problem saying that. But he's going to try to create the scenario that he was never part of and never existed, or you cannot recreate. You cannot now say, hey, guess what? Everybody else, your opinion doesn't matter because you're not part of this original group. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous. That's insanity. Yep. That's callousness, and that just shows the sheer arrogance.
John, do you see any patriots in the federal government? I'm talking about the Congress.
No, I don't. I do not. Matter of fact, right now the two major runners, Rubio and Cruz, I haven't really questioned their. They're both from foreign backgrounds. Cruz was born in Canada. I know people want to say that's not that big of a deal, but when you start importing people who don't really have a connection to the country, that's the reason why the founders did say something about natural born, because you're part more of the society, not because you're white or anything else. But let's face it, that would fall for anybody of any color. Obama has been exempted from that. He actually was not part of the United States. He grew up a large portion of his life as in a foreign country. He has this kind of scorn, ridiculement, and a distaste for American history, American people.
Yeah.
He thinks he's got this.
There's no doubt about that.
I mean, and that's what he's not. He's so atypical. The blacks who vote for him, he probably would run from an actual, the person on the street here in Flint, he wouldn't know how to handle them. He wouldn't know how to even deal with those
he doesn't have any background. I'm sure he was aloof in Chicago trying to find his roots through his adversarial relationship, making these counterclaims as a community organizer. And I'm sure that was part of his lashing out, because he didn't have any grounding points. And I wrote today about it and saying that a man has to be mentally disturbed to do what this man did.
Well, see, and that's not just the claim against Obama. If you look at the political families we got here in Michigan, the Kildys, they've been 2 or 3 generations ensconced in power. They've always been groomed for power. I saw it with an eye towards that. Ron Paul is a great man. I see Rand Paul as being just one of this political class. He's seeing the world now as like something he should inherit. It's like something he should roll into. So also I'm being very critical of that family, who I have utmost respect for Ron Paul. And all the years I know he was in power as the representative from Texas, the representative people of Texas, I should say. I don't see any. There's one scandal attached to him that I can see ever come to light. And I know the Democrats be really clawing through his background to see if they could, bring something like that to light. So I see the political class as basically, after one generation, you got one person in power. They're so used to being around those people, they now, it could work to our good, it could work to the bad. They know how to play the system, so you might get a good ally. But when they become so arrogant, they got their own agenda. That's what I fear, is when they have their own agenda.
Well, you're right about that, and John, I do have respect for Ron Paul as well. Ron Paul was one of those persons that was cut out with the cookie cutter, and that mold was then thrown away. There were 1 or 2 others that were that did have some character.
Dennis Kucinich on the Democrat side, from what I've seen, he was a constitutionalist Democrat. I have respect for him. He done some stuff I disagree with, but in the main, he's a hardcore patriot. He's still alive, I guess. But
yeah, he is. I didn't have respect for Kucinich, but I did have respect for Tom Coburn from Oklahoma. I thought that he was a person that was trying to hold the government to a certain level of accountability. You're not going to be able to hold politicians accountable completely, because, as I said, government is a magnet for sociopaths. In other words, it's a kind of mindset that people have that want to pursue power. I actually don't believe that you can be virtuous and pursue power, because the power is to be wielded in the lives of other persons who have their own sovereignty, and by you wielding power and wanting to wield power, you're actually intervening in the sovereignty of other persons. And in fact, I'll make this point. I'm coming back to Bush in just a minute, but I want to make this point. You know, Judge Napolitano, and I wrote about this yesterday, I kind of argue with his point. I don't agree with his point in terms of the primary reasons why we set government up, in terms of why government was set up. And I don't think this is really, Napolitano's view is consistent with the Constitution of the United States. He thinks it is, but it's not. And I want to explain what I mean by that. Napolitano has said that the first obligation of government is to keep us free. And he said if the government keeps us safe and does not keep us free, then the government's not done its job, because the first obligation is to keep us free. And I'm going to tell you why. Not only do I think Napolitano is wrong, I know he's wrong. And I think that it contradicts the Constitution. And let me tell you what I mean by that. The reason why we set government up in the first place, you can read Thomas Hobbes and any of those other writers that were trying to figure out why do we actually involve ourselves in coming out of an anarchistic state and set government up. Why would we do that, since we had freedom in terms of the free state? But why did we give that up? It's because we were not safe. Individually, there was somebody bigger than us that could bully us and beat us up and take, things from us. We were not secure in our possessions of anything, because the bully individually could take from us, because some of the bullies were bigger than us in terms of us individually trying to confront the bully. But collectively, we could in fact stand the bully off, because there is power in numbers, and one against a group will always end up with the group, being the one that is able to bring about resistance, because there is power in numbers. Now, we set government up to protect us, because individually we're not able to do it unless we come together and form a unit for that particular effect. But because government is set up to stop the bully, we have to make sure that the government, by the very nature of it being set up, doesn't become an institutional version of the bully. In other words, become the legal bully. Anything that has a potential to be the bully under the auspices of law cannot be the custodian of anybody's freedom. Absolutely not. And what Napolitano misses is that in back of the First Amendment, where you list and itemize the 5 freedoms that are contained in Amendment 1, in back of it is Amendment 2. Why? Because governments historically have had a tendency to get amnesia. And the people have the responsibility to keep themselves free. That's not the government not going to keep you free. The people keep themselves free. And that's why the framers made sure that they made the right to bear arms an absolute stated right in the Constitution, right behind the First Amendment. You have to be able to back up your freedoms against whom? The ones who's most likely to take freedoms from you. The legal bully. The one you set up to stop the bully that's not legal, who cannot legally initiate force because you put government to stop him. Now you have to have the instrument to stop the legal bully from taking your freedom. Take your liberty. And that's what the Second Amendment is about. It's not to go deer hunting. It's not to go out there and shoot some bears in the woods. It's to shoot at the government if it gets out of control. And I'm not saying that out of whole cloth. That was the intent. And John just said something very interesting just a minute ago. He said that, You know, a lot of these leaders right now, Cruz and Obama and some of the others, they weren't in the country they have the grounding points inside of the nation where they understand all the nuances of what is required because they were born here and were raised in the atmosphere and things like that. That's important to have. This is what their frame was intended. There were some ways of getting around it in terms of parents being born outside. They couldn't be fortuitous enough to be able to be able to put everything in there. But the intent is very clear. To have the grounding point inside the country. That's why they talk about being a natural born citizen. And they had not come to understand that it could be discerned in two different ways. One is Jus Soli, by soil, and Jus consanguine, which is by blood, in terms of the parents. If the parents are outside the country, either one of the parents could be outside the country. Then the child is natural born citizen because you can't split the child in half. I mean, Solomon solved that problem. So you have the child born to the mom. The mom is a citizen, therefore the child is a citizen. And that's why you can't spring on me this idea the mom can come here not a citizen, then the child is a citizen. How does that be? Give me a break. The mom comes in, and she's not attached to citizenship, but a child is attached to citizenship by the 14th Amendment. That's nonsense. These politicians, I mean, why do we listen to politicians? I understand why the propaganda they put out there, that they are the answer, but they're not the answer. And you can't tell me in a zillion years of studying history where a politician, listen close, there has not been, and I guarantee you that none of the scholars are going to contradict this, because it's an assumption. There's no evidence of it. It's just an assumption. We assume this to be true. There has not been one problem in the history of the world that a politician has solved. Now, if that's not true, name the problem and name the solution they gave to it without creating some more problems in addition to it. The best you can do in politics is do a trade-off. You do this. It's like that medicine I was telling you about some programs ago. When I was telling you about the medicine, I mean, listen to these commercials they put on TV. And they'll say, I'm listening to these commercials, and the guy is so calm. I mean, he's, and you got people playing in the background, and they're out there playing ball, and maybe somebody's out there having a sword fight, and they got this something going on in the back. Kids out there playing, and they're out there doing something with the water and calming you down, and just doing things that make that are designed through subliminal seduction to calm you down. And why are they doing this stuff in the background? Because what they have to do subliminally is calm your mind down, because they have to reach that part of your brain that tells you not to be fearful of what they're telling you. So they're giving you two different images here. They're giving you two different messages here. One is the one that calms you down by what you're doing visually, what they're doing visually, and they're working on that sense and that perceptor. And then they're doing something else in the auditory where they're telling you in a very calm voice, with the pictures being what they are, and the message is this stuff will kill you. And if you listen to those messages, that's what they're telling you in those commercials. 85% of the commercials on TV are pushing drugs. You can't call it medicine. Medicine doesn't put any disease in your body, and it certainly won't kill you. So every drug they put on TV is telling you that this stuff will kill you. If you listen to it carefully, that's what they're saying. But the reason why you listen to it is because it's a calm voice. And they had that one, I used to watch this one a lot. They used to do it different ways, but they had this one that was advertising the statin drug. And the statin drug, takes your cholesterol down. Now, cholesterol is it's a plaque in your blood vessels. So it's a buildup of fat. Really, let me be honest with you. I'm not practicing medicine here, but let me just be honest with you. The reason why people get fat in this country is not just because eating a lot of turkey on Thanksgiving. It's some of that, but the reason why people get fat, in addition to overeating, and it's not all overeating, a lot of it's something else, and that is the synthetics and the acid in people's body. And what the body is doing is it is producing fat as a way of getting in between the acid and the cells in the body, trying to insulate the cells from the damage that the acid in the body is there. So a lot of the body is producing fat as a defense mechanism. So they're not going to say that, but that's true. And I wonder if Dr. Carson would say that. He's a brain surgeon, and so we got to make him the Surgeon General in the next administration. I just think about this next administration. Put some folks in there that are competent. We don't have anybody in government right now that's competent, and that's why we're in the position we're in. But the point I'm making right here is that you look at the drug commercial and then import that over to the politicians. It's the same thing. They're claiming that they're going to fix something. Okay, whatever they say they're going to fix. Let's say they're going to do something with the minimum wage. They're just going to raise your standard of living, and they're going to do it through going to Congress, and we're going to raise the minimum wage because we know what the number is. We're up here in this air-conditioned building called the Congressional Building, and we're going to just pass a law here and let people see us out here making sure that they see us making their life better. And we're going to make it better by raising the minimum wage up to a level that you can live on a minimum wage. Now, it's called a minimum wage. And I think when you say minimum wage, you're talking about a wage that's an entry-level wage that you can get the experience you need, get more experience than you had before you start working. Then you elevate yourself up to another level where your skill level is greater, and you can sell your skills at a higher rate where the employer gets something out of the deal and you get something out of the deal. It's a win-win situation, and nobody lose in the proposition. But I'll tell you this. If you, in fact, raise the rate of wages up and don't raise the skill level up, which sets up a win-lose situation, then the employer is not going to lose. The person whose wages are being raised, about the skill being raised, is going to lose. Isn't that true? And so they come in here and they say, we're going to raise the minimum wage. And what is the after effect of that? The after effect is that it creates unemployment. Every economist, 96% of them will tell you that the increase in wages is an unemployment bill. That's all it is.
This minimum wage and the politicians behind it kind of reminds me of an old joke. Kind of reminds me of an old joke about this guy's going through divorce, right? And he's there in front of the judge with his wife, soon-to-be ex-wife. And the judge says, "Okay, Mrs. So-and-so, I grant the decree of divorce. I also grant you, $300 a week plus expenses, and child support." And the guy said, he looks up at him, beaming, he goes, "Thank you. That's mighty nice of you, Judge, and when I get a chance, I might chip in a few bucks myself once in a while." It's like no, don't you understand? He's given your money. He's given her your money.
So, yeah, right.
Yeah.
That brings me back to what I was going to say about Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush it's really interesting to listen to these politicians, and I only listen to them to dismiss what they talk about and to repudiate the arguments. Here's what Jeb Bush is advertising right now, because he's in panic mode, because it's clear that Jeb Bush is not going to be the nominee of the Republican Party as much as they wanted to be there as the establishment candidate. He's not going to get it, and now he's pulling at straws, trying to re-energize his campaign. But when you start at the consummate level, and you are the establishment candidate, and everybody knows that's why you're up there. And even Scott Walker over in Wisconsin was coming in as that person. He's already out the race. And Jeb Bush started at the top, and guess what he is? He's not even in the top 4 anymore. And they've written him off because people have rejected that. So he's in panic mode right now, and he's got this ad out, and the ad says, and I can tell psychologists put this together by the way he acts in the film. All of this is rehearsed. He's not a very good actor, very mechanical, and he says that when he was governor, he created 1.2 million jobs, which meant more people were in having work, more work for people to do. There were more jobs. He cut taxes, and he pats his pocket with his mechanical arm back there and pats his pocket and says, which meant if you cut taxes, we know there's more money in your pocket. We could hardly figure that one out. I'm glad to say. Then, of course, and the children began to learn. So, let me ask you a question here. Which of those things, since he told us all these things here, like in the commercial, which of those things should be celebrated because of Jeb Bush? With the SAT scores going up, if in fact that happened on his watch, did Jeb Bush do the homework? Did he follow them home from school and help them with their math when they got home? No, not even that. Was he in the classroom as a classroom teacher? And before that, was he certified to be in the classroom as a teacher? None of that. Okay? He created jobs. 1.2 million jobs when he was governor. What factory does he have? I mean, does he own a mom and pop store? Nope. Here's the one that really gets me, though. This is the one that really takes the cake. I know it plays very well in the political arena, and that is the one where they cut taxes. Now get this one now. They take our money by force. And sometimes, because we can't say no to them, they take more than what they need. And they sometimes do that deliberately so they can get some of it back. You know why? Because of the H word. You know what that word is, don't you? Because they're hypocrites. Imagine this, if you will. A criminal on the street taking all your money, and at the end of the year, giving you some of your money back, and then asking you to vote for him because he gave you your money. I mean, here's what politicians do. They'll say they cut taxes. So what does that mean? They allowed you to keep your money, and we're supposed to applaud that. I tell you when I will applaud. I'll applaud Jeb Bush, Donald Trump, especially Donald Trump, but he's running to be president, and I'm going to support him all the way because he's an outsider. I don't care what he says. I'm going to support him. I know he gets out there shooting out. People say he's shooting from the hip and all that. Good. At least he's shooting, and he's willing to shoot. Here's what I'll be impressed with. If Jeb Bush, J-E-B, not to be mixed up with the other two Bushes, the ones we've already had in there doing this in. If Jeb Bush reaches in his pocket and give me some of his money, then, I'm just like that slave, that came off the plantation. He said this, and went into politics. He said, down in the South, when they're running like in South Carolina, they had an equal number of blacks in Reconstruction government in South Carolina. They had whites. And so this black guy said, this is the 13th time that I've been sold. He said, but this is the first time that I was sold and got the money. Meaning that when he was sold as a slave, the slave master got paid. But when he went into politics, he sold himself in the oldest profession, by the way, and this time he got the money. Okay, well, if Jeb Bush gives me back my money, I don't see any reason to vote for him for that. I had my money in the first place. And I'm mad because you took it. Because when you took it and rerouted it around back toward me for political benefit, to claim that you cut taxes, if you hadn't raised them, you wouldn't have to lower it in the first place. And if you had not taken the money, you wouldn't have to return the money through secretarial services that add cost to government. I'm not impressed with that. That's just for non-discerning voters. I cut taxes. So what? You gave people their money back. Now, if you give me some of your money, I may consider it. Because I'm looking for integrity, and I'm still looking for that. And those that have it, they have my vote if I can find them. And the ones that have, let me tell you the ones that will have integrity. The ones that have integrity are the ones who have yet to arrive in the centers of power. That's when they have integrity. If they have any integrity, they carry whatever they have, any integrity they have it before they are installed in office. And they don't have very much even then, because the kind of people that run for office. Now, the ones that are running right now, I give them credit. I think they're running because I think they're running really for honorable reasons. They see the country's in trouble, and they want to make a difference. I mean, I look and see, were they trying to aspire to politics at the very beginning? Have they been career politicians? Have they run for office before? And things like that. No, they see the country's in trouble, so there's another kind of impulse they're running from in their cases. But when they get in there, watch them. And that has nothing to do with power corrupting, as Lord Acton was talking about, because that's not true either. What that is about is that once you get in there, you find out, wait a minute, and there's another thing that kicks in. It's like that one person said about that the wolf, right? And the little boy asked his dad, and said, Dad, which one of those wolves that you say inside the human being is the one that will be the one that's in control? And the dad said to his son, he said, it's the one that you feed. And so they get in power, and that other impulse, that other part of their personality, it's there. And if you doubt that this is something I'm making up, go back and read what Jefferson said. They asked Jefferson about this. Jefferson was one of the ones that was a signatory to the Declaration of Independence. He wasn't there for the. He did not signatory the Constitution. Neither did John Adams.
Like Kurt Vonnegut, he actually likened the whole political system as basically like being in high school. And basically, the guy who runs for class president, it's probably the guy that's the most antisocial, most extreme, not the person you desire to even be friends with.
Yeah.
And somehow they managed to become elected, and that's what And he was more on the left politically. So his observation basically is, there's some way it's all image. I mean, they have people who are. I mean, you talk about lawyers having jury, advice on choosing a jury. They have like down to a science, so to speak. Mm-hmm. They can just gauge how the person's reactions, or they take like the person's demographics into consideration, and they're fitting how they fit into a demographic and stuff like that before they choose these people to sit on a jury. it's basically the same type of people, the handlers around. I think those are probably the more insidious because they're the masterminds. They can actually probably take a fairly decent person or a person who might be actually open to criticism, and they kind of gloss over this. No, this is what you can present, but they don't actually say, why don't you change this about yourself or see if you can address this. No, they just know how to put putting pig makeup on a pig, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's what they're really good at.
You look at anyone that's wielding power, and there's a certain profession they go into if they are sick in that way. I mean, like, look, you can look in the universities right now, in those classrooms. Those persons on the left in those classrooms, those persons are mentally ill. You can take that to the bank. These people are sick.
When I was at U of M, I was a psychology student. That was one of my majors, and I was in just basically the general classes for it. But the rest of the people I knew were actually hanging around with because we had to take classes. Mm-hmm. You had to take so many classes together, basically. Because they just had so many offerings. A lot of people were in clinical community, and I came to find out that a lot of people are going to clinical community. Basically, the whole thing, the reason why I'm in psychology for in the first place, is they're really messed up and they're trying to figure themselves out. They couldn't afford a therapist on their own. Mm. So they got a chance to read the books and got private guided reading, so they figured out who they were and what they were. They're the most messed up people I've ever dealt with.
I'm telling you, John.
I'm sorry if that offends people out there.
No, it doesn't offend me because it's true.
But that's the truth. I mean,
I'm going to tell the truth. And, I have been in many different situations where the truth can get you in trouble. I've been in seminars where I have been the only one in there that has had a certain position. I don't feel out of place. I feel they're out of place. And it can get very hard sometimes because when you are telling the truth and people are taking positions based on a liberal ideology, which is pretty much the way universities are right now, when you begin to object to that, then there are going to be problems. But the question is whether or not you're telling the truth. And they have even gotten to the point now of making it appear that the truth is political correctness. That's impossible to have the truth being political. The truth is never political. And so you cannot have political correctness because the truth is never politically correct. The truth is politically incorrect. And so they want to talk about, and that's another thing they've done. They put this legitimization on politics as if to say then that those that are in politics, they are correct just by the very nature of the practice they're involved in, when it's the most vulgar practice you can be involved in. There's nothing more vulgar than politics. And all the ones that are there are, one person asked me about, which one came first, politics or prostitution. And I was saying that they're the same profession. The only difference is that in prostitution, the person sells their body, and in politics, they sell their soul. And both are congruent with somebody selling out their character. So there is no difference because politics is prostitution. And if you expect anything from it, you've not been paying attention to what politicians are doing now and what they've done in the past. There are no answers in politics, and you never get any answers from politics. And anybody know any history that I don't know, then tell me about it. Because I went back through the record to find out what did I miss when I was in college, on all levels. And what I realized is that what I missed when I was in college was that I went through reading the books and reading it by mistake. I didn't understand that I was not studying history but memorizing dates. I have a lot of dates I memorized. I mean, that's where I passed my test. Memorizing facts, did that also. But I didn't understand when I was studying history in college, and they didn't teach me how to study it. And that was a study, what does it teach? And there are three reasons why you study history, and one of them is to learn its lessons. And I didn't understand that when I was in undergrad school. I had to learn that on my own. But what I really learned was that when you go back and look at history, none of the problems that have been solved in history have been solved by politicians. Politicians are the problems. They bring problems to the table, and they don't solve any problem unless they create a problem in its place. There are no solutions in politics, so you forget that of ever having worked out anywhere, because there's no history anywhere. They can't show it to me. They can talk about it, but they can't show it to me, where there's been a politician to solve the problem in the history of the world. Because there's only trade-offs in politics. Just like I was saying in medicine earlier, that if you take medicine, it may well get your cholesterol down. And you have that woman going in that elevator, you know, the elevator had the woman going down in. That's the other part of that commercial. They had one commercial where they had the woman going down. The idea is your cholesterol is being lowered. But why do they have that elevator in there? Because the medicine is telling you that I shouldn't say medicine, the drug. The drugs is, what they're telling you, the drug is going to kill you. And so where the elevator is actually going is really going down into Hades. Can I say Hades? Because, you know, the other word would be more vulgar. So I say Hades. And the elevator is going down. But what's the ground level is going down to? I mean, you're right. And I can tell you that what they're doing, and some of these things they're doing subliminally, in those ice cubes, you know, they got you drinking this vodka and stuff like that. And then the subliminal painting in the ice cube, they got a picture of Jesus in the background. He's out there with his hands out, waiting to welcome you. Because you keep drinking that stuff, it's gonna eventually kill you. And they got you calmed down by airbrush painting in the ice cubes. I studied that, so I know it to be true. And now being caught at it, they kind of, you know, have to kind of get away from some of that and do some other kind of things. But all of it is subliminal, you know, seduction that they're involved in. But I don't really have any confidence in a politician, quite frankly. And we're wasting our time waiting for them to show up, and they're going to be better down the road than what we've had in the past, because there's just no record of that in the past, and they're not getting any better. They're getting more out of control. And when they broke underneath the Constitution, which they've done, and I still carry this around for this reason. John said last week that, you know, I hold on to this right here, and they're not following it. And he's right, they're not following it. But the reason I carry it around is because even though I know that nobody is beholden to it in Washington, D.C., none of those guys respect the Constitution. I understand that. But you see, as long as they have not convinced us to throw it away and give up on it. You know how I said, Yogi Berra said, it ain't over until it's over? As long as they have not convinced us to, in fact, discard it as if it doesn't count, then they have not won. And as far as I'm concerned, they're not going to win. Because there is going to be a standing in the gap, in the breach against what it is they're doing. And they have not won until the last one gives up and surrenders, and that cannot happen because there are some who are not going to surrender. One person I really admire on radio is Mark Levine. I have a lot of respect for Mark Levine. Mark Levine is a constitutional scholar. And pretty much when Mark Levine says anything, Napolitano is pretty good, but he's sometimes, you know, not so much. I mean, I read his books too, The Constitution in Exile. I like his book called, and he's right about this one, It is Dangerous to Be Right When the Government is Wrong. I would also tell him, though, it's also dangerous to be wrong when the government is wrong. And so when I said today in my post that I asked this question, I already had the answer to it, is it just a matter of the politicians being stupid? Is it stupidity or is it treason? And I concluded at the end of that writing this morning, when I put this up before I left for the studio, it is both. The political leaders are both stupid and they are committing treason. It's both of those things. And so, you know, you can just get away from, they're going to solve this. They're not going to solve it. We are going to solve it. And just as they're not listening to us, and they're not listening to us, 2/3 of you, for example, do not want those refugees coming into the country. 6 or 7% by the poll. Obama is saying if they send him this window dressing bill to him, that's all this window dressing, they know it's going to be vetoed, and they're not going to override it. Those Syrians are coming in here. And they're going to pass a window dressing bill, put it on his desk. He's going to veto it. They're going to take it back to the House. The House can't run these parliamentary games, so it then goes into the Senate. It takes 2/3 vote in the House, 2/3 vote in the Senate to override. It'll never do that. And it will pass through the backdoor approach, so they'll kill it through parliamentary decision. But the question I want to raise real quickly is, in whose name, since we don't want it, in whose name is it being vetoed by the president? In the name of this dictator. And that's the problem that we're dealing with. No, we're going to solve the problem. They're not going to solve it. Okay, until next time, I want you to follow your dream. Have a nice Thanksgiving, because I can tell you right now, we're going to have dressing and turkey at my house. And I got to go do shopping right now. So next week, we'll report back to you how it went on Thanksgiving. Hope you have a nice time with your family. Until that time, I want you to follow your dream, because if you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.